everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about DC Fandome 2021, the overall highs and lows of the event, and whether the format works currently as it is or whether further changes should be made. Now, there'll probably be spoilers throughout this video in terms of the DC movies going way back from Man of Steel in 2013, and also for a lot of the CW shows in terms of the superheroes, and also a lot of the other shows such as Titans, for example. So just beware of that when going into this overall review. Now, I'm pretty much sure everybody watching this video knows what DC Fandome is, but just in case there's anybody who doesn't know, DC Fandome is an online event showcasing the huge catalogue of DC content, everything from the films, the television series, animation, video games and comic books, etc. Now, the event started last year as part of a 24-hour showcase, and this year it was shortened down to 4 hours on Saturday the 16th of October. Now, in terms of the event itself this year, I still think it was an event that ran too long. There were a lot of content that they showcased that really felt insignificant, and I was watching the whole 4-hour event wondering, why are we showing this? Is this really necessary? What's the point? They could easily have taken this out and trimmed this event down. I look at the event overall and I think, had they kept it to content that was much more relevant and far more current or in the future, it really could have been stripped down to, I believe, a 2-hour event where everything that they were showcasing felt far more essential and therefore would have made it much more of a watchable event overall. Now, I've seen a lot of reaction and feedback online, with many people stating that they should have indeed split the event, with maybe one segment concentrating purely on the movies and then the second segment concentrating purely on the television series. But I disagree with that, because whether you are into DC content or not, it is a big event, and a lot of people within all fandom and the community of entertainment do watch the event overall, you know, in anticipation very much of the various trailers and reveals. So this is an event that you should be using for any particular comic book or film or television series. You should use the DC Fandome to really promote your material to as wide an audience as possible. There's no point in almost segregating certain segments of content just to advertise them to the audience that already watches it, because in that sense a show can never grow. So there's always more potential to expose your content to a much wider audience. So for me, it makes perfect sense to include all of the DC content within this fandom, but as I mentioned before, just keep it more relevant as to what's current or what's coming ahead in the future. Now, I won't go through every single piece of content that is showed throughout this event, but I'll just go over what were for me the main highlights. Now, of course, what everybody was talking about, particularly in the realm of social media, was the Batman trailer, the second of the Matt Reeves movie. Of course, the first trailer was showed in the last DC Fandome event. We had so much chat and anticipation about this movie, almost to the point of nauseum in my personal opinion, and it always tells in this current age where we've seen an expansion of characters within the DC mythology that yet again all we can talk about is the Batman projects. That's all people want to see, that's all they want to have conversations and debate about in terms of both movies and television series in particular. It did make me laugh when I saw in various online presentations of the event, and I was in particular looking at the chat, and throughout the various pieces of content that they were showing, all people were complaining about is, why isn't the Batman trailer here? Show us the Batman trailer. And of course, they were never going to show the Batman trailer straight away, right? Because they knew very much so that's what people were looking forward to the most. If they showed it straight away, then nobody would stick around for the rest of the presentation. So there was no surprise that they decided to keep the Batman trailer to the last stages within the event. Now, I have done a separate review of the Batman trailer, and you can check that out within the channel, and I will leave the link within the description. Now, the second most anticipated content of the event was of course the reveal of The Flash. As we all know, this is a movie coming out in 2022. It will have Ezra Miller in the lead as the Scarlet Speedster, and as we all know, despite being the first cinematic lead film of the character, this will very much adapt the classic storyline of the Flashpoint from the comic books, which involves Barry going back in time and as a result causing an alternate future where we see a very much dystopian take on the classic DC characters. And really the big selling point throughout this movie hasn't been the Flash itself, but the fact that we will see the return of Michael Keaton in his iconic role from the Tim Burton films, and we will also see a later on appearance of Ben Affleck's Batman, as well as the first reveal of the latest iteration of Supergirl, who will be played by Sasha Calle. Now when we look at the trailer overall, there were a few interesting elements. I'll give them credit, they kept it very much of a Flash centric. We saw Ezra Miller, well we got two Ezra Millers along with Sasha Calle's Supergirl as they were walking towards the Wayne Manor. Now to be honest, I almost didn't notice Sasha Calle as Supergirl in that very quick clip, because she has obviously the similar look in terms of Ezra Miller, in terms of the short black hair, so I really didn't notice her. Now what was most noticeable about this trailer is that of course we had two versions of Ezra Miller, very much fueling the speculation that we will indeed get the overall villain of this film will be a darker version of the Flash. So whether this second Ezra Miller version will indeed be Reverse Flash from another reality, we will wait and see overall. And you can clearly see in this shot where Ezra Miller has the more classic Flash costume with the bright red outfit with the yellow emblem, and then the Ezra Miller standing to his left in this shot here has the more darker costume as well. So it's very much going to hinge on how well Ezra Miller plays in terms of a darker version of the Flash, if indeed that turns out to be the story. We had another shot where we see the Flash looking at the Batman costume when they're in the Batcave. We have that other reveal where we see parts of Batman armor being very much covered in blood. So many people are speculating that this may indeed be the Ben Affleck costume, not the Michael Keaton costume. So we will wait and see overall. But we did get that very interesting shot where we got the back head reveal of Batman in the shop. I think this is Michael Keaton's version. Again, it could be Ben Affleck's version, but we wait and see. They did also, if you notice, they played the various tones of the iconic Danny Elfman score, and we also, I believe, had the Michael Keaton narration here. So it was very much of a big tease in terms of the Batman. Now there will be some people that would probably be disappointed that we didn't see Michael Keaton in the full costume, but I think that was the ideal choice to make, because at the end of the day you've got to try and, you know, give this movie its due in terms it's meant to be a Flash story. Many people, me included, feel that the Flash is going to be overshadowed. If we're being honest, a lot of people are more hyped by seeing Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck as Batman. So I think it was true that they really kept it more to showcasing the Flash. I did like the costume. If we look at here, it's got that very bright red aesthetic. We have the various jagged lines that we see so much in the comic book interpretation, and of course we had the classic gold boots as well. So I will give them credit that they kept it much more of a Flash focus. I'm still not overly convinced by the project themselves. I think it may turn out to be a mess overall, as this is very much the entry into DC's multiverse, which I'm not convinced about either. But on the trailer itself, it did look very good for the most part, and at very least gave us a good aesthetic look for the first time in terms of the Flash costume. Now we did get, for me, was probably the most interesting aspect of all of this content, and that was the opening scene of the Black Adam project. This is of course will be played by Dwayne Johnson. Black Adam over the years has become far more of a iconic villain within mainstream DC content, much more of a standalone character as opposed to the very much reverse reflection of Shazam. In many iterations, Black Adam has gone on to be far more of a formidable foe in terms of the Justice League itself to face off against. And from what we were shown here, I thought overall it was visually very good. It went for a clearly intention to show how powerful Black Adam was. We saw very much in this dark underground operation within this cave, it seems, I believe, or this warehouse, and we saw Black Adam in the hood. So we didn't see Dwayne Johnson in the full costume itself, but you can go online. There were various behind the scenes reveals that they showed where we saw Dwayne costume in very much of the blue screen backgrounds, and he looks physically impressive. Of course he's going to look physically impressive in the suit. And we had this sequence play out where basically he takes on, I think it's a certain soldier, and he basically disintegrates him. So very much intense, dark, atmospheric reveal of Black Adam. So there's lots of potential for a great interpretation and take of what will be, of course, the first live action showcase of this character. Now we talk about the Peacemaker trailer, and overall it still didn't convince me They're overall going for the same tone that was what we saw with the recent Suicide Squad movie. For anybody who doesn't know, Peacemaker, of course, was part of the main team as they were taking on the Project Starfish. Now, he does overall have a villainous turn where he had that fight in particular with Rick Flag and proceeded to kill him, and he was going to kill Ratcatcher, I believe, as well, before Deadshot intervened and they had that various fight between the two. And then Peacemaker, we saw, ended up being in hospital, and then we had the end credit scene throughout the film where they want to revive Peacemaker, going ahead and recruit him. So obviously they've been pushing a lot with John Cena in the main role, as what we saw particularly from the marketing for the Suicide Squad. And it certainly seems from this trailer that we're going to get far more expansion into Peacemaker's backstory and family, it seems. And I really think this project overall, it really is going to depend on your preference in terms of the far more R-rated humour. If you liked that tone, particularly from what you saw from the Suicide Squad, then you'll probably be more favoured toward this series. I'm really not so sure, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure why Peacemaker is getting his own series. There are so many other characters within the DC lore that you could have utilised, so many more interesting and far more dynamic characters that I think far warranted their own series far more than Peacemaker. But we will wait and see when the show debuts in HBO Max in January 2022. Now, we did get some behind the scenes footage of Aquaman and Lost Kingdom. This is of course the sequel to the first film, which still ranks as DC's most successful movie, grossing over $1 billion. I believe it was way back in 2018 or 19 when it was released in December. And this feature overall just gave us a few shots in particular of Jason Momoa coming back to the fore. Again, he's just giving some narration. Now, we did get some cool shots where we see an overall black suit for Aquaman, which was released earlier on a couple of weeks ago online, and I think once again they're going to keep with that same ambitious, outlandish tone as what we saw with the first film. The first film I thought was decent on first viewing. I haven't been as favoured when I've watched it on repeat viewings since then. The visual effects were great. There was an over reliance, I feel, on CGI, but I did like the fact that they didn't try to keep it grounded. I did like very much the concept of the various kingdoms within Atlantis as well. I very much like the idea that they were very much tapping into much more of the mythical lore of Atlantis. So I believe they're going to stay on the same trajectory for this second sequel. So I think there will be a lot of excitement and buzz when we see the eventual first trailer for this movie. And of course, Jason Momoa will retain his sizable fan base for this film. So I've got no doubts that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will be another big hit for DC films, but I just hope they have far more balance in terms of the film's storytelling. Now, in terms of the TV shows, in particular the CW Arrowverse shows, we got various promos for the likes of The Flash, Stargirl, Supergirl and Batwoman. Now, as I stated before, this was to be expected. Now, I've got no issues with this as a lot of the shows are still currently on air, so of course you're going to use DC Fandome to try and promote them, so I've got no problems with that. To be honest, there wasn't too much reveals in terms of The Flash. The big selling point was the fact that he wears the gold boots. Again, I would have much preferred some more information in terms of the big 5-episode crossover titled Armageddon, which will be shown exclusively on The Flash itself. Again, I'm not sure why they're not spreading it out over all of the other TV shows, or why indeed both Superman or Stargirl aren't featuring in that crossover. But we didn't get any information regarding season 8 overall. As we all know, they are recently filming the season as well, so maybe they don't want to give too much in terms of spoilers. It was very telling as well that Candice Patton did present a lot of the segments throughout the DC Fandome. I believe Grant Gustin only showed, I think it was 2, maybe 3 instances, but Candice was a constant presenter throughout the show, so obviously they utilised her a lot throughout this event. In terms of Stargirl, we got the preview for the latest episode, which I believe is the 11th throughout this season, where essentially we're going to see what happened to Courtney when she got taken to the other realm following the encounter of Eclipso, and we will also find out what happened with Cindy. And for me, Stargirl is quite possibly the strongest superhero show currently showing. Now, in terms of Batwoman, they did push hard on the show, and to be honest, I'm not surprised because they didn't get very good ratings for the opening season 3 premiere, and you can check out my review of that particular episode within my channel, and I will leave a link within the description as well. So we did get a lot of extensive coverage of the show. They really had to try and promote Batwoman as much as possible. Whether we will get a season 4, I truly believe will depend on how well the ratings go. The signs aren't so good so far, but we'll wait and see in the future. On a personal note, I thought Javicia Leslie was looking very hot throughout this presentation, but very short as well when she compared her to Rachel Skarsten, who plays Alice on the show, who really towered over Javicia Leslie. I really couldn't tell whether Rachel is very tall or whether Javicia is very short, but both females look very good within this presentation. For some strange reason, we got a behind the scenes featurette of Superman and Lois season 1. Now, I do understand Superman and Lois has been one of the biggest successes recently within the CW shows and the most well received overall, so I get that we had to present the show in some way of fashion, and I understand they've only recently started to film season 2, but they could have dropped some light non-spoilerific hints on the certain direction that we're taking with the up and coming season. I don't get why we needed to see how they filmed season 1. Very much praise of Superman and Lois, and you can also check out my reviews of that show within my channel as well. We did get a glimpse of Naomi, the newest CW show that's coming up very soon within 2022. Now, I don't know a lot about this character, but just doing a quick brief research, I think originally she's the daughter of certain metahumans from a parallel universe, and she has certain abilities of superhuman strength and flight. I know the overall look of her costume she has is very much of this gold, very black costume. Now, we would assume that the CW take will be far more grounded in terms of the representation of the character, and a small clip that we saw throughout the event basically had Naomi within her classroom as a young teenager. She gets some reveal that Superman is flying outside, so she rushes out to see him in her skateboard, and then when she sees him zooming across in the sky, she then collapses. Whether this is an earlier manifestation of her own abilities and powers, we will wait and see overall. Will there be some sort of early crossover with Superman and Lois, or will we indeed see some of the other Black Lightning characters, in particular both Jennifer and Anissa as well, who were Thunder and Lightning in that show? We'll wait and see. And very much Naomi, I feel, is going to fill the diversity void that was left open by the cancellation of Black Lightning in its 4th season. Will it adopt the same approach in terms of the very social messaging, in terms of black culture, racial relationships and interactions with the police? I'm pretty much sure we'll get some social messaging within Naomi, but I just hope they emphasize a lot more on her superpowers and abilities. But we'll wait and see how well the show performs next year when it's released. We did get a further announcement that Titans will be getting a 4th season, which was to be expected overall. It has proved to be a very popular show, and I think overall it does get very good ratings for HBO Max, despite the fact that there are multiple issues with the show. And to be honest, I will expand upon those a lot more when I do an overall season review of the 3rd season of the show, and also I will do a review of the season finale as well. And to be honest, the reveal itself, which was made by Brenton Frates, the main actor who plays Nightwing, it wasn't put together very well. It almost seemed like he was doing it very late. Now, they did show a quick preview of the season 3 finale, which was a conversation between Gore, Beast Boy and Tim Drake, and I think they were showing how they were trying to break back into Wayne Enterprises. It wasn't a very convincing scene overall, to be honest, but this won't be the main focus of the finale. It's going to very much focus on Nightwing being helped by Jason Todd, and obviously we're going to see the return of Donna as well, how everybody forges back into the fight back against Scarecrow. So again, no surprises that Titans is going to get a 4th season. There were also no surprises to see Doom Patrol get a 4th season renewal as well. Now, to be honest, I haven't watched Doom Patrol, but from what I've read, it's got a lot of good critical reception with both critics and fans. It's very much more of a separate entity with no real connection overall in terms of any other shows. So fair enough, if people like Doom Patrol, no problems with it getting renewed for a 4th season. Now, Supergirl did get a segment to acknowledge its final season with all actors alongside Melissa Benoist reminiscing about all of their good times together. Now, I had no problems with this because Supergirl had a very successful run lasting for 6 seasons, and we all know that it's coming to an end for a long time. And for the most part, it's been one of the most highest rated shows alongside The Flash. So no surprises that they were taking this time to acknowledge the overall achievements of the show. Now, to be honest with you, season 6 has been sadly very disappointing. and I'll expand a lot more on that when I give an overall review of the season. And as with all other shows, you can check out my reviews of previous seasons within my channel. But in terms of the segment itself, I think fair enough to acknowledge it's coming to an end. Now, in terms of television content, we did have other coverage for the upcoming Batgirl show on HBO Max starring Leslie Grace in the lead role. We also had coverage of the Blue Beetle show starring Zolo Madureira, who, as we all know, plays Miguel in Cobra Kai. And we had a pretty good visual shot of the costume of Blue Beetle, and I thought it looked very good, very striking, very well aesthetic on here. So hopefully the show itself could capture that same tone. I do assume that both Batgirl and Blue Beetle will get sizable budgets, all a big part to show the ever expanding diversity within DC content, so I've got no problems with that overall. And we can't really speculate too much more in terms of these overall shows, but we'll wait and see more when we get the first footage. Now, I'm not a hardcore gamer in any way, shape or form, but we did get reveals of both Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now, from what I can see, there was very good positive reactions to both of these computer games. And yes, the graphics look very well, especially with the Suicide Squad, which really we didn't see any gameplay. It was much more of a 2 to 3 minute, almost like a cinematic trailer in many ways, very much capturing the same wacky, crazy tone as what we expect from the Suicide Squad. But visually, it looked very good, as did Gotham Knights as well. So I can't really comment too much on those. But if you're a fan of computer games and you've been looking forward to these two projects, then I'm pretty much sure you'll be pleased on how they were showcased within this overall event. We also got announcements of an intention to do a Static Shock movie, I believe, so a lot of people will be very pleased about that. And again, that's just expanded very much more on the diversity within DC content as well. I do believe that Michael B. Jordan is being set to produce the film as well. Now, I'm just going to quickly talk about the less significant stuff throughout this event that really dragged it out, and I feel really could have been taken out. A lot of this stuff I feel was really unnecessary. We first of all talk about the Smallville and the 20th anniversary. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Smallville so much. It really was one of those special shows that I grew up watching so much within the early 2000s, and you can check out my overall breakdown of what I deemed were the best Smallville episodes. That's a 3-part segment within this channel, and I will leave the links within the description. So I do love the show so much, but did we really need a reflection on the 20th anniversary of the show? This was quite a long segment where we had interviews with Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling, who of course played Clark Kent and Lex Luthor. And to be honest, we've had so much online in terms of Smallville events and press conferences and online sessions, and you do get to that point where you say, what really more can we say about the show? There's not going to be no continuations. We're not going to get a Smallville movie. I do believe there's going to be some sort of animated series of the show where both Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum will be doing a lot of voice work. But I just feel, what more can be said about the show? Did we need such an extended segment to recognise the 20th anniversary? And I'm not sure that we did. We then have the Wonder Woman 80th anniversary, and this is again too much of a prolonged segment. By all means, we celebrate Wonder Woman. She is of course the most iconic female superhero of all time, but I just think overall we should have kept it to just Patty Jenkins and Linda Carter in their interview. This really should have been, I think, a 2 to 3 minute segment. Now, they did reveal that Wonder Woman 3 is in early development, which was to be expected. Of course, we all knew that we were going to get a third sequel despite the lukewarm reception to Wonder Woman 1984, so that was really to be expected. But after that, we got an extended coverage of all of Wonder Woman fan art and a TikTok challenge to do the iconic spin of Wonder Woman. Again, really not needed and would just make the event dragged on overall. So at most, this should have been really a 3 to 4 minute recognition of the character's 80th anniversary, and then no more than that. We then get some really weird stuff where we had, I believe it was an NFL player showcasing the fact that he's making a Superman hat. Again, why did we need that? We had various segments of them showcasing how many Flash t-shirts you could buy. Again, why did we need that? We had a really weird sequence of Neymar promoting some more Batman merchandise. Again, all of this stuff you should have just taken out of the event. Nobody really cares at this point, and this is just much more of corporate marketing just to push more merchandising. Really wasn't necessary, and I think was really frustrating to watch throughout the 4-hour event. We did get some various more kid animated shows. In particular, for some reason we had, I think it was the League of the Superpets or the Super Puppies with Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart doing the voice work. Why do we need this? And things like this frustrate me overall, because I think of all the budget that you're spending of all of these CGI animation shows, you could really put towards reviving some of the more classic animated shows, in particular of Justice League and Unlimited and Batman Beyond. If you were to showcase a 4th season of Batman Beyond, that would get fans mega hyped for this event. So I'd rather see them push forward far more than that, than what we're getting with all of these kiddie orientated CGI shows that I've got no interest in whatsoever. Now, just quickly, in terms of animation, we did get a trailer for the latest animated movie, Catwoman Hunted. Again, does Catwoman really warrant a individual animated show? She's prominent so much in all of the Batman animated movies that we see so often. So do we need a solo Catwoman animated film? I really don't think we do. I mean, the animation was okay. It was very anime influenced. So again, depends on your preference. And of course, if you are a Catwoman fan, then you will enjoy this very much so. But I just don't think it's really needed or necessary. So that's it really in terms of my overall thoughts and feelings on the DC fandom. As I mentioned before, there were a few standout elements, but I think there was a lot of filler that could have been easily cut out and trimmed down. This really should have been at maximum a 2-hour showcase overall. And as I mentioned before, I think going forward, if they're going to make this a permanent fixture, they really have to make sure they focus much more on the current content and the future content as well. I think that's the best advice going forward. Keep it really down to 2 hours overall. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings on the DC fandom of 2021. Very long video, I know, but let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you think it compared to last year's event? Were you happy that it was only 4 hours, or do you think it should have been actual longer? Do you feel it should just focus primarily on the movies, or are you like me, feeling that it makes complete sense for them to all showcase all extensive amount of DC content? Please also like and hit those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon. I'm just tired. I don't know how.